Jay and the Lost Key, a lesson in patience. Jay was a kind-hearted, curious man who lived in a small, peaceful town. He was known for his love of storytelling, always eager to share tales with children and adults alike. But today wasn't about stories, it was about solving a problem in his own life. One sunny morning, Jay was preparing to leave for the town library to pick up a special book he'd been waiting for. It was a rare collection of ancient stories, and he was excited to read it. He packed his satchel, grabbed his hat, and reached for the key to lock his house. But the key was missing. Jay searched his usual spots, the table near the door, the drawer in his study, and even the small bowl he kept specifically for his keys. It wasn't anywhere. Frustrated, he muttered to himself, "Where could it be?" Jay decided to retrace his steps. He thought back to the day before he'd been working in his garden, watering the plants, and reading under the old oak tree. It must be there, he thought, rushing outside. But after a thorough search of the garden, checking every flower pot and even shaking the cushions on the bench, the key was nowhere to be found. Jay's frustration grew. "Why does this always happen when I'm in a hurry?" he said aloud, though no one was around to hear. Just then, his neighbor, Mrs. Harper, walked by. She was an elderly woman with a warm smile who often offered Jay cookies when he brought her groceries. "What's wrong, Jay?" she asked. "I've lost my key, and I can't lock the house to leave for the library," Jay explained. Mrs. Harper chuckled. "You young folks are always in such a rush. Did you try sitting down and thinking calmly? Sometimes, the answer comes when you're not so anxious." Jay smiled politely, but he couldn't shake the feeling that he needed to keep searching. "Thank you, Mrs. Harper. I'll keep that in mind," he said, though he was already scanning the ground again. An hour passed, and Jay was exhausted. He sat down in his study, staring blankly at the table. That's when he noticed something odd: the corner of a piece of paper sticking out from under a stack of books. He pulled the paper out and realized it was a note he had written to himself the day before: "Don't forget to bring the spare key from the attic tomorrow." Jay slapped his forehead. "Of course. I left the spare key in the attic while cleaning out old boxes." Jay climbed up to the attic, which was dark and dusty. Cobwebs hung in the corners, and old trunks filled the space. He rummaged through the boxes, coughing as the dust rose into the air. After a few minutes, he found the small metal box where he kept spare keys. Inside, to his relief, was the spare key. As he held the key in his hand, Jay laughed at himself. "All that stress for something I had the answer to all along." Jay made it to the library just in time to pick up his special book. As he sat on a park bench later that evening, flipping through the pages, he thought about Mrs. Harper's advice. Sometimes, life doesn't require rushing or panicking. The answers often come when you pause, breathe, and take a moment to think. That evening, Jay shared this little story with the kids who gathered around him for their daily storytelling session. "Remember," he said with a smile, "when life gets confusing, slow down. The key to your problem might already be in your attic or in your heart." Moral of the story: patience and calm thinking can help solve even the trickiest problems. Thanks for watching. Subscribe for more stories with Jay. Like, share, comment.